right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you enjoying the Fast Company Grill so far? Has it been good? Good day of programming? Okay, love to hear it. So my name is Ifeanyi. I lead the editorial programming here for Fast Company events, and so I'm the one responsible for finding the speakers and like forming the panels. And this panel in particular is very close to my heart. As a son of Nigerian immigrants, I'm always fascinated by how people are incorporating culture into their business. And I actually had this same panel 2 years ago at an innovation festival, and the stars aligned for me to revisit this topic with three new founders. And so I'd love to have everyone just kind of go down the line and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your company and its tie to a particular culture. So Jerry, let's start with you.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jori Grammont. I am the co-founder of Mabï Artisanal Tea. And our brand is tied to the Caribbean culture. We make plant-based herbal teas, all natural, no preservatives. Mabï is huge in the Caribbean. It has a 250-year-old history. It is medicinal, it is natural, and we drink it on a daily basis. So we wanted to create an herbal, ready-to-drink tea that somebody can consume that would add value to our bodies versus empty calories.
There you go. Jori?
Hi, I'm Jori from Minnetonka. Minnetonka is a fourth-generation, family-owned and operated business, 79 years old, founded in 1946, and we have done a lot of work in the last 5+ years on cultural appropriation with the Native American community and reconciliation work. So that is what I'm here to talk about today.
Love it. Mika?
Hi, my name is Mika Shino. I'm the founder and CEO of Issei. We are an innovation-forward, women-owned, Asian-owned, next-generation snack company. Our first product is Mochi Gummies, which are the world's first gummies inspired by Japanese mochis. Issei means first-generation Japanese immigrants in the U.S., and it's about honoring the heritage and the culture of all immigrants and all outsiders who come here with hopes and dreams of a better future.
Love that. And I want to start by asking, how do you all straddle the line between culture and commerce? Because obviously turning a profit is incredibly important for a company, but you don't want to over-index and get to the point where you're exploiting this culture. So how do you straddle that line between turning a profit, but then also making sure that you're honoring the culture that your companies are based in? I'm looking at you, Joe.
So we do that in a couple ways. For one, first and foremost, it's being respectful to our culture. It's ensuring that we do things that are going to elevate our culture properly. And most importantly, we educate people around what we're doing and our cultures and why and how it's utilized. So, for us, it's not about, the financial gains. For us specifically, it was about how do we bring this wellness ingredient to the States, because we're so enamored with what this ingredient does for you and how do we share it with the world.
I love this question. I spend a lot of time on this internally.
I know
so for a 79-year-old business, we have different product categories. Slippers are our biggest category and have been for a really long time. And recognizing that, yes, the business is built on the shoulders of appropriation and acknowledging that, but also really making sure as a brand, it would be lazy to just default and say, oh, now everything is going to be this. And it shouldn't be. That's not right. That's not the right type of reconciliation work. So for us, it's really spending time and being very disciplined about carving out DNA that is outside of that while honoring that part of it too. And so you can tell I'm all excited because we do spend a lot of time on this. We're never going to be done with this work, but it's not appropriate or okay to then just have everything fall to it, because it would be like that's a way we're different.
Right. Mika, how do you balance the culture and commerce aspect?
Yeah, it's such a great question. For me, this product came out of a place of love. My kids love gummy bears and Sour Patch, everything that's gummy. And I knew that there was a way to recreate this soft gummy texture, but with mochi. So I started to bake sheets of mochi cakes and cutting them up into small pieces and giving it to them, saying, well, these are gummies. So because of that, I was really happy that they also learned, because they grew up in the US, right? So they really don't know everything about their heritage. It gave us an opportunity to talk about mochi and how sacred it is and what we do, how we celebrate it as a community. So because of that, I think, because it's at the core of our product, I don't think that it's exploitation. It's really more about sharing. And because we're different, because we are the very first product, very first candy in the world, made of mochis, that's our differentiator. So that really brings commerce.
Yep.
We are number 8 in the category, non-chocolate gummy category, to bring growth, incremental growth to the candy sector, which is huge. Number 8 with, you've got the Sour Patch and the Gummy Bears and the Haribos. I mean, 2.5 years in to be able to say that, it's because we have the culture at heart.
I love that. And this kind of builds off of that because, I know that there's some consumers who just want, a delicious iced tea or good candy or just cute shoes, really. So how important is it to get that story about your brand to the consumer? Because there's some people who may not care, but how much do you care? Jori, let's start with you.
I think in the end, the product has to sit on its own. And people have to either like it or not, whether they know anything about it or they don't. And I do believe that that's kind of the core of selling a product.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. At the end of the day, I want to make delicious candies. I want to make candies that are better for you, that don't have artificial colors and flavors and gelatin and emulsifiers, right? So that's the most important thing to me as a mother and the reason why I started to make it. And I think when you make things that are authentic to you and that you really have your heart into it, it's a stealth way to communicate a message. My background is with the United Nations. So I worked at the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization for 17 years, where we used cultural goods, so philosophy, art, literature, poetry, music, as a way to bridge cultures. So when you're listening to Bob Marley, it's a great song. But obviously, you're going to start to be curious. Where's Jamaica? What are they doing in Jamaica? Why do they do their hair like that? It's a beautiful way to bridge cultures, and I really hope that our product can be part of that. So you're not forcing it.
Absolutely, Jori.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's exactly why we educate our customers on our products, where they come from, because a lot of people ask me, Jori, how are you doing this? And Haiti's shut down right now.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, it's been shut down for the past 4 years.
Right.
But we were able to scale our company to numbers that are unforeseen for a company that's getting all of their raw ingredients from Haiti. So educating consumers on culture and why it's important, and even the fact that the terroir in Haiti is so different than most Caribbean nations. That's how the products that are grown over there has such strong functionalities to it. So I find it that when we're educating our customers around basically our culture and what we're doing, we're actually also selling the product itself because it's directly tied to it. But there's also another major reason that I do it personally. It's because we've had, I don't know if you recall the earthquake that happened a long time ago in 2012. My niece was stuck there. And when my sister told me this, I flew out there immediately the next day. I had 10 doctors and nurses with me, but we were the first in the country. Wow. I drove through DR because I know the country. But see, that event basically displaced a lot of young Haitians. And many of them are here in the States now. Right. But many of them don't know our cultures anymore. Many of them are disconnected of what we create. Many of us are from the Caribbean itself. Mm-hmm. And many of us don't know all of the amazing, beautiful things that our cultures have to offer. So this is why it's so important to do these things.
I love that. And I want to touch on the impact that your companies have had, because of course, getting the culture out there is one aspect of it, but I know that in some instances, you are having a direct impact on the communities that your company is based off of. And so, Jori, let's start with you, because I know that with Minnetonka, it's been just you're doing the work and then some to like get to really come out of this cultural appropriation. So I know you're working with designers. I know that this is something that has been a huge factor with the company. So we'll start with you on just like what the impact you've had so far.
One of the first things that we did was get to know people in our local community and just listen and learn from them. And Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities has, I believe it's the third largest Native population, and there are incredible leaders running nonprofit organizations in our community who we've gotten to know. So the first thing is just learning, listening, and building relationships and supporting those organizations, which we still do. Working with the designers who we work with, the artists, making sure that they're paid, making sure that these are real relationships, making sure that they're getting the spotlight on them so they can tell their own stories. So you have to do that in a lot of different ways, and it isn't just about sending a check or having a royalty payment, which of course we do, but it is about really giving them the microphone and giving them the spotlight. There are certain things like Lucy Shefke, who is a member of Red Lake Nation, who redesigned the Thunderbird on a Mabï, that we actually filed the copyright on her behalf, which was a really beautiful, strong moment. And we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We try not to, but we do. We're human, for sure. I have one in my inbox right now.
Than some companies do, so I think you need to give yourself a little bit more credit.
But yeah, it's about long-lasting, having the long-term vision and hitting it from a couple different things. So we have pillars. It isn't just artists, which is a huge important part, but it isn't that. Can we do business with Native-owned businesses? There are a couple different things that we really try and pay attention to all of it.
Yeah. And Jerry, you mentioned you get all of your raw materials, from Haiti. So I know you work a lot with the farmers there. So what impact have you seen by sourcing directly from Haiti?
Sure. I'll give you a perfect story, actually. I love saying stories. So my mother called me once, and she told me, Jerry, guess what? So-and-so's daughter is going to college in the U.S. I'm like, that's fantastic. And this is somebody that, just to give you an idea, my grandmother was, again, another story, but it's part of it.
A story within a story. I love it. Yeah.
My grandmother was abandoned when she was about 15, 16. She had about 10 younger siblings behind her, and she told me how she was selling candy in the countryside to basically create her career and her business later on. She wound up being very wildly successful in Haiti, one of the first black women that was uber successful. But she did that starting off selling candy. Well, one of the things that she did that I didn't learn until later on was she had built a network of women that she worked with the entire time. When my mother moved back to Haiti in the 90s, that same network, she passed it down to my mother. And today, I'm working with these same women. Wow. They're grandchildren of the originals, but these are family members that we're literally now helping the next generations to go to college. Yeah. So this is not a nonprofit that we're working with. These are just people from our communities that we're empowering economically.
That's beautiful. Mika, I don't know if you have any sense of impact that your company's had.
I think when I look at my kids, my sons, they're 11 and 16, and when I see them and their friends being excited about mochi and Japanese heritage and wanting to learn and where it comes from, I think that's a huge pathway towards cultural pride, instilling pride for all immigrant cultures.
Absolutely. And I'm curious if there's been any specific challenges you've had with growing your business and everything like that, because, there are certain cultural aspects that are unique to these companies. And so, Mika, I know in doing the research for this panel, I came across a story about like how, as you're trying to scale your business, the machines that you were trying to find to make the mochi couldn't handle the rice flour. So right. I'd love if you can talk a little bit about these specific challenges that come.
So because mochi gummies is something completely new, and because in this country people aren't used to using rice flour or rice anything. And rice is much more glutinous. It's like glue. So it's heavier than wheat. You know, a lot of people know how to work with dough and wheat dough, but it broke a lot of the machines almost that we were able to do trials. But it was a difficult road. You know, nobody knew how to make it. From going from my kitchen, my little recipe, to a scalable recipe and a scalable processing plant. We called over 100 manufacturing facilities. We worked with over 11 food scientists, all PhDs in starch. I didn't know you could get a PhD in starch, rice starch to be particular. But it was a really, difficult road. The first order that we got from Whole Foods Market, based in Austin, so shout out to them. We hand-baked, hand-slabbed, and hand-cut 3,000 pounds of mochi. Like tendinitis, carpal tunnel, and sleepless nights for 2.5 months. 6 people just cutting. It's like dough. It's like Play-Doh. So it's really difficult, but it taught me the difficult path of innovation. When you're really trying to do something new, there's no path. There's no guidebook. There's no proper manual on how to do it. You have to figure it out. You guys both know this, right? So you have to do trial by error and. Yes, you're bleeding money sometimes, and yes, you don't know is this ever gonna work? Is this ever gonna, get to a place where it's a real thing, right? But it really taught me that you shouldn't be afraid of innovation. You should really just dive into it and take the risk, because now we have 2 patents that are pending. We have a proprietary product. We have a 3rd patent pending. So we could never have done that if we were just another gummy bear or with less sugar or just another peanut butter cup, right? I could have found many, many co-manufacturers to do it, but it wouldn't have been the original thing.
I love that. Jerry, I see you shaking your head so much as she was talking.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So much. I mean, so this is probably now a year and a half. And when you tap this open, you could probably you still smell the lemongrass, the ginger, every single ingredient in there. And I have 0 preservatives in this. To get this approved with just the FDA, we wind up getting an FDA exemption. And then we had to
one do that?
Yeah. A lot. Yeah, there are, but it's been, even the co-packers had to email our essentially the university that did the testing that approved it, and they're like, "Are you sure we can do this? Everything's gonna be okay. It won't explode in 90 days." And we're like, "No, it won't explode. It'll be fine." See, what's going on is this is cold brewed. There's no co-packer in the United States, none, that can do large manufacturing of cold brew of anything, especially for medium and small. Now, if you're going into the Coca-Cola size, sure, but you have to do at least a minimum of 1 million each time you start those machines. So, yeah, we had to figure that out a lot.
It's rough.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
The thing that helped us, like you, was we utilize our family. My boys were helping me all day, all night, right? Cold brewing tea.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Jori, I don't know if there's anything in Minnetonka that, like, you, in growing the business, that you had a specific challenge that was, native to the company.
Well, I will just say these 2 are obviously true entrepreneurs, because the difference between actually figuring it out, it's one thing to have an idea and it's another to figure it out. So big kudos to them.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean that. I know it's hard. For us, it's a little bit different. It's about trying how we make new things for us, figuring it out. But yes, I'm not gonna pretend it's the exact same challenges that they have. I would never do that.
Right. No, so I'm curious. I mean, what misconceptions, if any, by stores, consumers, have there been about your culture or the products that they represent? Like, because it's one thing to have the messaging and put it out there, but I think some people will have preconceived notions about products from Haiti or Haiti itself, have preconceived notions about the indigenous community, have pregeconceived notions about Japanese culture. So have you run into that at all?
A lot. I didn't know you guys drank tea.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right.
Others were like, oh, so it's just tea, right? So the educational part of, no, this is, functional herbs that have been processed and cared for so that it can give you a benefit. So we're constantly re-educating, educating, and we like that because we incorporate that in our story, actually, right? So when you go on our Facebook page, you see right now we're talking about Women's History Month, and the first merchants of Mabï drink the beverage were women, and they had them on their heads, selling them in the streets. And pirates used to drink them. Generals used to drink it because they weren't allowed to drink alcohol. Popular to contrary belief, pirates did not drink beer. They couldn't. They needed to operate the boats, so that was not happening. But they were drinking something called my beer. A lot of countries, that's what they would call it in the Caribbean. So that's where it really stemmed from. That's where it came from. So, education and understanding what these things are is what helped us really spread that.
Absolutely. Have you faced any misconceptions about the product or your company? Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't tell who you was looking at. We're not native owned.
Yeah.
And I would never pretend to be an expert on that culture, except to say that there are a lot of different cultures. So let's be clear about that, right? But I can talk about reconciliation work, and I can talk about cultural appropriation. And yes, there are comments sometimes that we're just choosing to not engage in those conversations. I'm not here to talk about pizza or Chinese food. We're not here to convince people. If you're really, really skeptical if we're appropriating or not, I'm happy to talk about it. But if you're just mad, I'm not here to do that.
Absolutely.
So we've been lucky that we haven't had a lot of misconceptions. The retailer partners and all the vendors and all of our customers, they've been embracing Mochi Gummies and the fact that it's Asian. There have been some smaller retailers that have said, oh, this is great, but it's Asian. You guys belong in the ethnic aisle, or you belong in the Asian store, and that's hard. But I think, little by little, you have to start somewhere. And I think mochi ice cream, for example, that's mainstream. There's very few people who don't know what that is, and they don't even know where it comes from. So I think you have to start somewhere. And it's the same, people eat sushi, they eat, ramen, and it's an embrace. It's embracing the culture at large without really. And again, this is about the stealth diplomacy, right? Mm-hmm. But so we haven't had a huge challenge, but it is there. It is definitely there.
Yeah, and so in the context of this conversation, what does success look like for you all beyond a profit? Like when you think about like what makes what you want your company to be, like what success means beyond profit in this context of this conversation, what does that mean to you?
For us, so we talk about this a lot actually at Mabï, because when you look at some of the things that are happening in Haiti, many of the media stuff that are coming out, we want to educate. There's more to it, right? Haiti is not one small country. Haiti is the second largest Caribbean island. So, there's tons of areas in Haiti that are not going through issues, right? So for us, success looks like community empowerment. For us, success looks like ensuring that we're able to continue our progress with the farmers. Education. It's really making sure that people understand and view this in a new light. Mm-hmm.
For us, success is showing the fashion industry how to show up better. Yeah. And it's not that natural to be so public, just on a personal level, but our native advisors want us to lead here. And again, it's not about being perfect, it's about how do you show up better, especially in that industry when it comes to appropriation.
I love that. And show up better, not perfect, because it's like it is a process. So I love that point.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. For us, I think success is just to exist, right? Going from 0 to 1, we're the only Asian-inspired candy on the aisle. Right? All the other gummy candies, they're great, but they're based on European traditions of gelatin, which is pork-based, and pectin, which is fruit-based, but they're from Europe. I think it's time to expand the category and redefine what it means to consider other ingredients that were not considered worthy of creating certain things, right? There's tapioca, there's rice, there's konnyaku, there's a myriad of ways in which you can make things.
Yeah.
But if you don't allow diversity, if you don't include other people, then everybody loses, right? So success is about existing, for my kids to see themselves reflected on the shelves, and for me also to prove that I left a UN job to do this. I'm an immigrant girl from Japan, to prove that I can do it too. Like, why can't we, right?
That's incredible. And you said two words that lead into my next question, because, I know, Mika, you had an interview and you said, quote, "Our brand is an ode to diversity of experiences, memories, and stories that all immigrants carry. It's about creating bridges and celebrating diversity." And Jori, on your site, you said, "Being a Black-owned business, we understand the importance of creating economic opportunities and empowering our local communities." And Jori, I know, like we said, you've been working with Indigenous artists. You redesigned your logo to remove culturally appropriation elements to it. And so essentially your company is quote-unquote woke. And so I say all of this to say, how are you thinking about your companies, navigating your companies at a time when DE&I is under incessant attack? We can start with you, Jori. Oh, Jori, you're like raising your hand. No, please go on.
So for us, we first went public with this back in 2020. And we didn't do it because of external pressures or because of trends at the time. We really did it because it was something that we came to for years, that we knew it was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing for the business too. And to be honest, we thought it would be a matter of time. And so, that was 5 years ago, and we're going to keep talking about this story, not because of any trends one way or the other, but just because it's now become a part of who we are, and it always will be. So just trying to stay the course, stay focused on what we do and what we can control and how we can contribute to the world in the conversation, and try and not get involved in the noise.
Real quick, is it as hard as some businesses pretend it is to stay the course? Because we've seen how quickly some companies can flip-flop. They'll say they stand for something, and then the second there's a little pressure, they crumble. So how difficult is it?
Yeah. So we're based in Minneapolis, and there were a lot of public promises made by a lot of companies around when George Floyd was murdered. And so it was just close to home in terms of watching everything going on with that. We're a private business, and there are pros and cons to everything. And there are things we can do that other people can't do, and things we can't do that other people can. And I actually have a lot of sympathy and understanding for these huge corporations. I don't run a huge corporation, and it is hard to turn the ship, and you have responsibilities as public companies, again, which we're not, that we don't have. And so I don't know. I think it's really complex. I think that we also live in a time of headlines.
Yes.
And I think that you have to be really careful. You have to be really careful if you care about this topic to read the whole article.
Imagine
I'm
that.
sure you hate that advice. And do some homework. I think that with this topic in particular, and just remember that there are a lot of factors at all levels.
Yeah. Jori, how are you navigating your company at this time?
This was actually a conversation that I had with one of my partners. We partnered up with this nonprofit out of Minnesota, actually, called Youth Prize. And they're actually a very diverse nonprofit company. And their main goal is to help support local communities out in Minnesota, especially local indigenous communities. And we had a recent meeting with them. They asked, "So, Jori, what's going to happen? Are we still going to call this, I'm like, we can call this whatever we want. At the end of the day, our company operates this way, and we'll always be operating this way. We're a Black-owned company. We have probably 75% females in our company. I have a diverse group of people from various backgrounds. So there's no way that I can say I'm not going to employ, you know, diversity part of my strategy. It literally is my company.
Right. Mika, do you have it? Oh, yeah, no, please give it up. Yeah, like, Mika, please, yes.
So, in terms of how do we navigate this negative othering, I think throughout history, you know, there's ebbs and flows of negativity and oppression and discrimination, and there are always pockets of resistance, right? I myself grew up in a time, because I'm not a spring chicken, I grew up in a time and a place where there was a lot of negative othering towards Asians. And, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, and I had a lot of friends, but every year for Cabbage Night, which is the night before Halloween, we were the house that they would come and egg and spray paint and load with toilet paper, right? Even though we were friends with everybody in the community. So I've lived through that. But I'm here, like I'm literally here at the Fast Company panel at South by Southwest, you know, presenting my brand that's 2.5 years old. So
Yes.
it's like, you know, you can survive that. It'll make you stronger. And that's how I feel about my company. We're not gonna waver from who we are. We're gonna lean into, we're Asian owned, we're you know, women owned, we're heritage proud. That's not gonna change. And
Exactly.
that's how you resist and you build people around you and communities and people who agree with you, right? And then that'll be stronger again. And so I think the tide will turn. It has to.
You said something also earlier that I think is so key. It's the things that we're bringing to the table also is bringing new things that people wouldn't
Exactly.
never
Exactly.
experience, right? So I think that in itself is the positive that we get from diverse companies.
Absolutely. It makes life better, right? I
Yeah.
think life is better because there's pizza, right? Definitely. I don't say, well, that's Italian, so that's not me. I mean, we don't even realize all the things that we enjoy. Tacos, right?
course.
Margarita. I mean, all those things that we take for granted today came from an outsider.
Yeah.
It came from a foreigner. So that's what really needs to be recognized, actually, and given voice.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you all so much for this. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Give it up for these wonderful folks.